Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. When I look at this young crowd, I wish I was as young as you are and starting my journey and be around for SG 100. But then there's also time when I'm glad I am where I am. I've done my 40 plus years journey, and the time is always now. And as you embark on your next 40 years, I wish you a wonderful, great journey. When you celebrate SG 100, I'll be watching from up there. Before I begin, thank you very much, Hazel, for the very warm words. When you said Mr. Lee had this vision to do this and to build sort of to train the central bankers and the bankers, it's a wonderful vision. And one footnote for you is that the university don't make the student make the university. If the university is going to be revered by many others, it's because they have produced great students and gone on to do great things. So don't think the university make you. You actually make the university, so bear that in mind. I know it might sound daunting right now as you start off, but don't underestimate yourself. You can make a difference. Okay, I was asked to talk about the future of Singapore as a wealth hub. And the title is quite generic, and I was struggling to put this together. And I'm sure like all of you, when you do your papers, you have 2 months to do it, you take 2 months, you have 2 weeks to take it, you take 2 weeks, and you have 2 hours to do it, you take 2 hours. So I started working on it yesterday. Although I was given I don't know how many months notice. So I want to explain how I want to frame sort of how I want to flow. And I hope that maybe during the moderation and Q&A, you can engage on a more proactive manner. I want to talk a little bit about Japan. Japan is very close to my heart, and I want to explain what happened in Japan in the 80s, what they did and what they did wrong, and why they never really emerged as a financial center. And then I want to talk a little bit about the US, why the US is so dominant, and from there I will move into Singapore. And we can see what we can learn from Japan, and what we can see why the US is so dominant. And I don't think we'll ever be like the US, but to understand how to chart our course. I will also talk a little bit about Hong Kong and Dubai, maybe less than that. But China is now the second most powerful economy in the world. Actually, Shanghai is the one center that can give us a run for our money, but it won't happen in our lifetime. But I have ideas on how to help them if they want, to be the financial center of Asia. Because by the fact that you are the second largest economy in the world, you can be the financial center of Asia if you choose to do so. So let me talk about Japan first. In the 1980s, are there any Japanese here? Any Japanese? No. In the 1980s, the Japanese were really king. I used to joke that the era of the 1980s, the Japanese could do no wrong. In the era of the 1990s, the Japanese could do no right. In the 21st century, they have no idea what they're doing. I say it half in jest, poking at them, but half in truth, because they've really lost their way. They've lost 3 decades, 1 generation. So those who graduated 30 years ago and are 60 today, they have really lost out. There's been minimal pay increment, there have been deflation, and when I went to Japan 40 years ago, 1 lunch in Malaysia, 10 lunch in Malaysia is 1 lunch in Tokyo. The cost of living was so high. And today you all go to Japan, even Malaysian, Indonesians, I go to Japan and say it's so cheap. When I was a student, I cannot imagine the day when I thought I'd go to Japan and say it's cheap. Japan, being the second largest economy, had the chance to be the financial center of Asia. All the top traders from Hong Kong, Singapore, basically packed their bags and were sent to Tokyo. I remember when I went to Tokyo, every trade was $100 million, price for $100 million, for $100. In trading language, they skip the 60. When they say $1 is $1 million. And that was a volume that we did. We were really king of the universe. But the Japanese, their trade surplus was so strong, the economy was coming out, And to give them credit, they lost the war in 1945, and by 1985, in 40 years, they became the second largest economy in the world from the ruin of World War II. So hats off to them. They work hard, and they work hard. But they failed to be a financial center and really sort of take the lead, and dominate. Because from my observation, they made three mistakes. Number one mistake that they did was they got so arrogant, they wanted finance in Japanese. Well, guess what, the rest of us learns with Japanese. And even in Europe, the Germans know that finance has been English, like it or not, English is the national language. Mistake number two, the corporate tax rate in Japan was like 42%. So it was extremely high. And in finance, it's really people, a service industry. And the third mistake was that the rules are very onerous. If you want to do any capital markets, the rules are so onerous, it's very, very expensive and painful. And maybe we can talk about that during the Q&A session on Singapore, maybe eating along the way. So that was a little bit for Japan for me to start off with. The second part is really the United States, and the United States, the dominance of America. We stand at the crossroad whereby we will see the fall of an empire and the rise of a new empire. This is a very exciting time in history. Many a times you are the 60 or 80 years you live is within the period whereby there's no major changes. But I think as we live and breathe today, we see the re-rise of China and the beginning to collapse of the United States. The United States was like 40% of the global GDP, or high 30%, I can't remember the exact number, in the 60s. Okay, they were dominant. In the 70s, one of the best decision by the American president was Nixon depegging the US dollar. In the past, I'm sure you're in your lessons learned that the dollar was backed by gold, and it's $35 to 1 ounce. At the time it was $35. And Nixon basically said that any government could bring $1 billion to the Federal Reserve and say, give me my $1 billion equivalent in gold, and the Federal Reserve have to deliver that. Why I say that's one of the most significant decisions was that by depegging it, literally today, the US dollar is backed by nothing except the paper it's printed on. So put simply, it's backed by confidence, and confidence in the dollar alone. Okay, the $10 trillion printed over the last QE1, QE2, QE infinity is backed by nothing. That was also my aha moment when people said that crypto is backed by nothing. So is the fiat currency. And crypto is limited at 21 million, and the fiat currency is limited by printing press, which means it's unlimited. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. So America became dominant because they were so powerful, their industry, and they went to conquer the world. And that's why the American banks were the first global bank in the world. Okay, I worked for Citigroup for 27 years. And then the second global bank that could have been a global bank were the Japanese, because the Japanese became the dominant, and they had companies all over the world, exporting all over the world. The third country that could be a global banks were the Koreans, because the Koreans also got very big. But the Koreans somehow didn't make the cut. And now the fourth country that can have global banks are the Chinese, because the Chinese industry are going out to the rest of the world. Recently, Bank of China has been asking me for advice on how to think through their strategy. And I told them that, don't waste your time with the retail business. Concentrate on the corporate, concentrate on the big Chinese company that has gone overseas. And they also want to do well. And I said, because you're Chinese bank, you have a disadvantage. And we can talk about why being in Singapore and why being in a Singapore bank and in Singapore is a tremendous advantage in this era. So the US dollar, because of its dominance, and people said that the US dollar is backed by the military, by the ecosystem that they have, by their tax, by the whole infrastructure. But if you look at America today, the government has become so irresponsible, that you have to question the basis of the confidence that people have in the dollar. The last 3 years, I think central bank has bought more gold than they did the last 20 years. So the de-dollarization is happening. De-dollarization is not a one-time event; it's a process. For the sterling to be de-sterling, I guess, and the US dollar took about 60 years. But I don't think when we de-dollarize, it will take 60 years. I think it will be much faster. And the process has already started and it's happening. I'm sure many of you have maybe Singapore stocks and US stocks. How many of you hold stocks in Japan or England or Germany or Italy? Probably zero, right? I only hold one stock in Singapore. Okay, you want to guess where? And the rest of all my stocks are in the US. You know, so the capital markets in America is really, really king. And because of that, they attract the capital flow. You know, but of course, America was dominant as the largest economy by far. But like I said, history is happening, things are changing. Now let me come to Singapore, talk a little bit about the past, then I'll talk a little bit about the present, then we go to the crux of the future of this Singapore Center. We, in 1965, I guess, 1963, is it? Our independence was 65, right? We joined Malaysia in 63, sorry, September 1st, 1963. Was it September? No, it was September 17, 1963. It was Lee Kuan Yew's birthday. His 40th birthday was the day we joined Malaysia. And we left in 1965. I think one of the best things you guys did was to beat Malaysia. I'm the next Malaysian, so I can say that. From a training port to a trusted wealth management, I think all the things that Lee Kuan Yew had, the vision that he had, is really second to none. On his 90th birthday, I was interviewed by Straits Times, and the one comment I got, it was a short interview, but I told Straits Times that Lee Kuan Yew is one in a billion. You know, his tenacity, his foresight, you know, and when I read his book, I remember one passage that really struck me. When the British Army wanted to pull out of Singapore, and the British Army had so many people dependent on it, he was so worried about the parents losing their job and not being able to feed their family. And that's why the formation of EEB to go overseas to back for companies to set up their factories or their offices in Singapore, and giving them very low tax rate or zero tax rate, because he needed the creation of jobs for the family to feed the children. So it really, if you look at it, Singapore was founded on one, integrity, openness, rule of law, clean governance, regulatory environment that price prudence over complacency, and it's the basic good values of life that is really the foundation of it. We all take it for granted today, but it is really the foundation of how the nation is. I'll give you an example. Singaporeans are not born smarter than the Malaysians or the Thai or the Filipinos or the Indonesians. They're not. But why are we always ahead of those countries in terms of the job that we have? Okay? Because our country, on the back of those principles, attract a lot of multinationals that comes in. We get good jobs, they train us, and the cycle fit itself. You know, we are not biologically smarter than our neighbors. But a secretary here in Singapore, compared to a secretary in Malaysia, Indonesia, or Bangkok, they do the same job. But a secretary here earns 5 times or 10 times what a secretary in other countries make. You know, so on the whole bell curve, we shift up. Like a CEO, a bank CEO here in Singapore earns a lot more than a bank CEO in the other region, and the business is bigger. So because of those foundations, you know, we have that advantage where people underestimate, you know, and you know, I was also in the same interview. I said what Singapore has can be summarized in 2 very simple words: good government, nothing more, nothing less. Because on the back of that, everything happens. Oh, by the way, I'm not running for PAP, so it's just let you know. Okay. So, coming back to present Singapore, you know, hats to Singapore. I mean, I think Lee Sim Seng, when was he finance minister at the time we met, the vision to be able to envisage and rule of law is not something that is people believe you after 4 or 5 years. It's a generation. You know, that you have proven yourself, that your courts are not corrupt, your rule of law actually happens, you can take people to court, you know, it's done properly. And then the push my MAS, MAS is actually a very good regulator. I have my differences with them, like all in all, they are a very good regulator. They are not just a regulator, they're not just a supervisor, they're also a central bank, they're also a business promoter. So there's one arm or 1 year that always trying to see what they can do, and they're very engaging. I walk around the region, and some central bankers is like an audience with the emperor when you go and see them. It's really not. And the sad part is that they don't know what they're regulating, and then they don't want to give very clear answers in case they get it wrong. So everything is kind of like moving in the dark. So the ecosystem that has been built is something that I have to give credit to the government. So it's not just having banks coming in, it's like, encouraging asset management, the family office, the VCC. We are not just a hub about management, we are a hub for FX, for asset management, for commodities. So the whole ecosystem is being created, maybe not all at the same time, maybe it was thought through in its entirety at the beginning, but as they moved, they pivoted, they built on it, and later on it became sort of the ecosystem that we have. So I think, it's what I call, it's not just an inflow of wealth, it's an inflow of confidence into the country. So when Kuala Lumpur says they want to be a financial center of Southeast Asia, don't hold your breath, what happened in my lifetime or in your children's lifetime. So there's Dubai and Shanghai, Hong Kong, that's on the back of our Hong Kong is, I call Hong Kong like our brother, and it's always good to have two strong players in the region. So when Hong Kong was going through a very tough time, I told my bankers, Hong Kong will come back. Don't underestimate the tenacity of Hong Kong. And having two good players is actually a win-win for both parties. So I don't feel glad or I don't feel happy that Hong Kong was going through a tough time. I always thought that it's better that we compete in a very friendly manner, but when we give people choice, people will come more and more to Asia. So in this industry, we are custodian of trust. So our integrity, judgment, ability to anticipate client defines Singapore brand, and that is at the end of the day more valuable than any statistics that you can give. So I want to talk about Shanghai, which is I think a very interesting case, maybe during the moderation session. But Singapore future, as Professor Mendy mentioned, there's the geopolitics which is fragmenting the global markets. So if you look at it, it really runs to Singapore advantage. Singapore, the Indonesian money was always here, okay? Then we started expanding, and now the Chinese can take the money out, or some of them, because they list in Nasdaq, the money is taken out, they come here. The Arabs and the Middle East always go to UK or Switzerland. They don't look at Singapore, okay? But given what has happened and what the US have done, no Russians will bank with American banks anymore. The Russians that bank with Switzerland or UK will also pull out because they are now aligning with the US. So the Russians are actually coming to Asia, and their choice is Middle East, Dubai, or Singapore. Between Dubai and Singapore, Singapore is the preferred choice. Okay. I pushed this initiative in DPS to look at the UCAP, the European Union and Central Asia. Not at that level that banks with us is a different category altogether. If you have $10 million, we tell you maybe don't waste your time. It's okay. Our bank is something better. If you can't give us 100 million, we're really not interested because we're not there. So it would really be significant, and you know about us if you want to bank with us. And I have a customer asking me, Mr. can you take $500 million? And I've said, let's start with $100 million. So this is a completely different category of customers we're talking about. But they would never bank with the Europeans or the American banks, especially American banks. So their choice, the preferred choice, is Singapore. Even the Middle East, who banks with Europe, are now giving Singapore a second look. So you are actually, those of you who are in block management or want to get into block management, this is the best time to be in block management compared to 30 years ago. Even 30 years ago, we might have started, but we are now creaming, we are now really the center, and people are looking at this because it's quite mature. and we have proven that we can do it. Also, the way MAS gives this tax incentive to encourage, it's really actually a very smart scheme. Because the government is not willing to tax it. The government really wants you to bring the knowledge, create the ecosystem, create the jobs, and then the second order, third order, everything will go through. You know, so like I said, hats off to MES for doing such a great job. These days, I think the rise of AI, you know, everybody is going to be impacted. The first wave of industrialization, the farmers lost their job. The second wave, the factory workers lost their job. The third wave, white-collar workers will lose their job. You know, it's coming. You know, so the question is, how do you add value? You know, how do you differentiate yourself? You never swim against the tide, because you will lose. So you will swim with the tide. And the key is not that you have to be an AI expert. The key is that you got to know how to use AI. How do you use AI to make yourself more productive? You know, so you don't, like, I can give a simple example. I love to drive cars. I love fast cars. One of my weaknesses in life. I don't know how to build a car, right? But I know how to drive one, and I know how to drive it well. So how many of you here know how to build a car, but you know how to drive one, right? So it's the same concept. If you think about it in simplicity. We don't have to do the coding. We don't have to do all the techie knowledge that frightens us. But we must know how to harness the technology to make us more productive. I think one of the things that you talk about your second objective, do well, do good, you know, do right, you know, I think that's very real, because the second generation of people are more conscientious on that. No, they won't just do good without doing well, you know, but they want to do well and do good at the same time, you know, and I think that's the right first step. So I think Singapore too has also become a regional hub for green financing, for ESG investing, and you know, PB business or the wealth management business has a responsibility and an opportunity to guide clients towards a purposeful wealth that create these changes. You know, the other thing also on Singapore is really talent. I mean, we are banking business is a service industry, so your people makes the difference. So how you fight with your brains, obviously. You don't fight with your hands, you fight with your brains. You know, I have a special unit in the private bank that I created. I acronym them SAS after the special air services in the commandos in the United Kingdom. I call them strategic advisory solutions. And then the SAS, the logo is a dagger, you know, and the motto is who dares win. So mine I copied them, but hopefully they don't sue me. Instead of the dagger with the handle is actually a light bulb. And the motto I have is who thinks win. They fight with the bronze, we fight with our wings. You know, and the way I created that, I want my top bankers, the top 10%, one, to qualify to be designated like a commando or an SAS, you must be a $10 million producer. In fact, I'm beginning to think $10 million is too low already. Number two, 70% of the customers must be business people, businessmen that you can talk about M&A, you talk about public listing, going private, or reverse takeover, you know, so you must have the investment banking skill set. You don't have to be an investment banker overnight, but you must understand enough to know how to advise, how to spot opportunity, and then you bring in the investment bankers from the corporate bank. And the third is that your product knowledge has to be superior. So I keep telling my private bankers, the low end on telling that your staff, you know, buying Meta stocks, buying Microsoft, those days will be over. Those days will be over. So if you can create a digital twin, like you said, the digital avatar, you know, whereby they can handle 90% of the day-to-day for your other customers who are like, you know, salary people like me. I don't have a company to buy, I'm not in a position to do M&A, you know, but I want to earn a little bit more from the bonus I receive. So those, let your avatar handle it. But your business bank client, those who are the advisory piece is bespoke. So if you don't have that, then eventually you'll be marginalized. Then the last, the fifth point on the future is really the value of money. You know, the nature of money, the tokenization that's happening right now. It's like in 1971, when Nixon depacked the US dollar from gold, it created this opportunity for all the synthetic instrument that came about. You know, so Wall Street really boomed big time. If you look at the top, maybe 50 banks or 50, not banks, if you look at the top 50 or 100 market cap, by market cap in the United States, I think quite a number of them are banks, because the Wall Street banks benefited from what happened in 1971, you know, the creation of so many instruments, derivatives, so many things on the back of it. If the dollar is back at $35 to gold, there will be no opportunity for all these synthetic instruments. So the market is now arguing that we are also at the cusp of exponential change, you know, with the way the digitalization has come about. You know, the next war is really a cyber war. So the question is, how would bank change? How would finance change? How does Singapore evolve as a relevant and thriving financial hub in this era? You know, and I argued earlier, I mean, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin market is digital gold. You know, I was very skeptical when it first came about, but about 18 months back, I became a converted. You know, because my aha moment was this. Let me share a quote from this Nobel Prize laureate in 1974. His name is Hayek, H-A-Y-E-K. You can Google him, Frederick Hayek. He's an Austrian American, and he said this quote: "With the exception of the gold standard, practically all government of history have used their exclusive power to issue or print money to defraud and plunder the people." I think we see it happening today. I don't believe we should ever have good money again. Before we take things out of the hand of the government, all we can do is, by some slight roundabout way, introduce something that they can't stop, control, or print. And Bitcoin, to me, is the solution to what he's talking about. You know, I don't think Bitcoin will replace fiat entirely. I think it will coexist with fiat. You know, and if you think about it, when they say Bitcoin is not backed by anything, it's, like I said, so is the last $10 trillion. You know, Japan is irresponsible, that GDP is 250%. Euro is also in a mess. UK is even in a mess. All the G7 countries are in a mess. And the money that's being printed is all paper. And if you look at history, the debasement of currency has happened again and again in different part of history. You know, which is why I said earlier that the US government is so irresponsible today that my confidence in the dollar is lost. So when people tell me, since I'm very conservative, I keep my US dollar in fixed deposit, my reply is that that's the surest way to lose money. The surest way to lose money is slow and steady, but you lose money. And if you look at the last 80 years, the value of the US dollar has depreciated by 97%. You know, so I decided that gold is my base currency. So any excess, when I say I'm not taking any risk, I keep it in gold. You know, because gold is really, if you look back at history, you know, the base of it all. And people are surprised. If you look at the gold return in the last 30 years, I think gold return has beat S&P. You know, very quietly, nobody noticed it, but you look at the price movement in the last 30 years, the return is even higher than S&P. In this multipolar world in the 21st century, digital warfare in cyberspace is here, or it's coming. Okay, I think it's really here. Look at all the scams that they're talking about. Okay, if we agree warfare will increasingly take the place in the cyberspace, then by extension, any technology that will secure digital property, digital capital, digital information, digital communication should logically emerge as a key pillar to any state security. Bitcoin proof of work consensus mechanism could mean Bitcoin is more than an emerging monetary system, but also potentially an emerging electro cyber security system. So a lot of big things are happening as we speak, as we live today. And the question is that I think central bank MES is doing a good job in some of the payments, blockchain, trade. How does it impact? I think our stock exchange is also starting to look at that, whether you tokenize, you know, but a lot of this technology is going to change the way banking is being done. It's literally, you are your own bank. You know, if you have a wallet, you can keep your Bitcoin, you can transfer it to somebody else without getting the bank involved. The fee is minimal, it's instantaneous. So it's like, I attended an executive course at Singularity University about 5-6 years ago, and the one thing I learned from them is that your sacred cow makes the best hamburgers. So you better sacrifice the sacred cow. And for banks, a lot of us, because we're making so much money from our sacred cow, we just don't know how to disrupt it, we are afraid to disrupt it. But like it or not, change is coming. So the key to secure Singapore's position as a financial center or wealth management hub is to identify and understand emerging technology, embrace it, set the rules to govern it, and proactively show the world that they are ahead in building use cases for it. I think that's paramount to stay ahead. So the central bank, and the top bankers here need to sit down and say, these are the new technologies happening, how would it impact them? But the fear is that because the banks, sometimes you have to be the first to lose money to lose lease, but with the way the market analysts look at you, the way they want to see growth, it's very hard to disrupt yourself. And it can only happen when somebody disrupts you, and then you have no choice. But while you have the choice, I find very hard to disrupt yourself. So I don't know how that will pan out, but I see what's happening around us. And sometimes I said that the best thing that has happened to the banking industry is the fintech. The fintech has forced the bank to reinvent ourselves. If not, the regulators so tightly. Every time I come a new initiative, they say no. MAS, that's one area that I don't quite agree with MAS. It's really the crypto for the retail customers. MAS is quite paternal and won't let the banks do it. But our data shows that, okay, you don't let them do it. They're transferring money to Dubai and trading on Binance. But if they blow up in Binance, nothing to do with this, but that's not a good way to do it because our people still suffer, and there are a lot of all this smaller exchange that has gone bankrupt or has been scammed or has been hacked, and they lose their entire holdings that they have. The correct way to do this is education. So anyway, that is one difference I have with MAS, but they are the regulator, so they're the boss, we have to listen to them. The building of the foundation of an ecosystem that will support and strengthen Singapore's position as a financial center. So it cannot be done in silo. Everything has to be done, to see how the dots are connected. One of the things that we've done in DBS, when we map out our strategy, and our strategy can, when I explain DBS consumer strategy, I can explain one page. There are 4 quadrants. The first quadrant we call it digital banking, digitized open banking. The second quadrant we call it open banking. We call it the rise of the ecosystem. In the past, you come to a bank, you need new banking stuff, but now you go to upstream, downstream, sidestream, work with everybody. So it has an ecosystem kind of concept, and not a vertical. You come to a bank, you need to do banking product. You go and embed ourselves, into the customer's life. The third quadrant we call it cognitive banking, DDOM, data-driven operating model. The intelligent bank, how we learn from Facebook or I'm not a big fan of Facebook. Every day I get beautiful women inviting me to be friends. I'm sure it's an ugly man behind. But every year I'll buy maybe 4 or 5 times through the Facebook app. And I like the way they target me. They're not intrusive. Like I look at some whiskey glasses, then they'll show me different kind of whiskey glasses. Then I don't do anything, they go away. And 3 weeks later they remind me of something again, and then I end up buying. So I buy maybe 4 or 5 times, I spend $200-300 each time, so it's $1,000. If you have $1 billion people that you can nudge to spend $1,000, that's $1 trillion in value. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. And they didn't call any RMs to call you, obviously, you want to buy this. They don't. Everything is done through algorithm. And that's why technology can scale. Digressing a little bit, I always tell my staff, go big or go home. One time a customer asked me, why are bankers so well paid? And I said, no, bankers are not well paid. Bankers are actually overpaid. And I'll give you an example. If you're the best brain doctor, how many brains can you operate a day? 1. If you say 2, don't be the second patient. Right? A banker can give a loan for 100 million or a billion analysis same number of times. I can run an FX position for 10 million or 100 million, same number of times. I can, do an M&A for 1 billion or 5 billion, same number of hours. So why are bankers so well paid or overpaid? Leverage. Our business let us leverage. So in the same context, quantitative banking is that you use technology to leverage. Then the fourth quadrant, we call it automation banking. Designed for no ops, designed for no branch, designed for no cash. So whatever we do, you don't have to come to a branch from your app, everything straight through processing, and it can be debited and settled very fast. And the middle and supporting all this fourth quadrant is what we call engineering banking, to re-gut our entire engine, because banks used to be on mainframe, and we have moved to microservices, so we can adapt much faster. Last time we could just change something like it was fill in so many forms, and it take 3 months before the queue come up with to make a change. If you do that, you finish. So we need leaders who have vision to see, understand the possibility, the ability to put down a well-thought-out strategy, and the tenacity to execute it. I think Singapore, definitely in the past they have that, but our society has also gotten us to be more cautious. So the kiasu, kiasi, it's good for maintenance, but it's not good to break up to see how we progress as a financial center. But the good news is our friends in ASEAN, nobody is near us. They are in a mess, if I put it bluntly. And for any of them to say they want to be a financial center, what happened in my lifetime, what happened in your lifetime or your children's lifetime? They're so far behind because the foundation of this country, given by our founding father, is second to none. Some countries, if you are clean, the system will kill you. Because everyone is corrupt. If you are clean, you are on track. In Singapore, the system is clean. If you are corrupt, the system will kill you or pull you out. It can be frightening at what's coming. It can be exciting if you know how to play a game. So, to the class of 2025, is it? As you graduate or have graduated, I wish you well. I think, embrace the journey ahead of yourself. And wonderful things is going to happen, but that is if you know how to embrace it and add value to whatever you're doing. Okay? Thank you very much. I think you cannot compromise on good governance, because that's one of those what I call foundation that you must get right. But it doesn't mean that it has to take a long time to do your KYC. So you got to be smarter in the way you do your KYC. Recently somebody who's very senior and just appointed CEO of a top American bank wanted to open an account, and the questions we asked were really not very smart, and it took a longer process. But I think the longer process didn't make it any more better because it was a very silly process. So good governance doesn't mean that it has to take a long time. We have to ask all these different questions. You got to know how to segment your customer base. And a lot of these public figures or quite reputable people, you can fast track it. So I wouldn't say that you have values, because good governance is a fundamental that you must have. I don't think it's over-regulated. I think MES is always fair regulated, that if you have something logical, you can always talk to them to get their point of view. But you can't just go with a disagreement. You've got to go with a solution at the same time to see how we can work it out. Because end of the day, if a lot of things blow up, it's not good for the country. I mean, a simple example, the Fujian gang that got up and my Malaysian friends was teasing me about Singapore. I said, let's be real. You think there's no such thing in London and Switzerland? Seriously? Just because there's no one got caught or there, what you mean to tell me London and Switzerland is all clean? I said the fact that we caught them, the fact that the suspicious transaction was reported, the fact that means our SOP actually worked and the government actually took action and we actually caught them. So that's a good thing. In fact, catching a Fujian gang to me is not like a black mark in Singapore. I think it's a way to show that to the people when we fight, we do what we have to do, even if it's embarrassing for the country. And that's how we build our reputation. Not so much lesson for Singapore. But if I'm advising the Chinese government, I don't know, maybe it's a bit arrogant to say I can make them the financial center of Asia, but you think about it. When you're the second largest economy in the world, Singapore is catching potato compared to them. We're not even a village, we're not even a city which is a village. 6 million people, right? The reason why Shanghai is not a financial center is because one, renminbi is not convertible, okay? Two, the rule of law and corporate governance, people don't trust it because, it's a communist country, rule of law may be a bit questionable. But the fact that they have the economy, means they have the business, the IPO, the DCM, the ECM, they can have it very big. If you go and say that in Pudong, the Pudong area where the banks are, 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers, so 100 square kilometers like DFIC, you carve it up in the boundary and say this is a special, instead of a special economic zone, special financial zone. In this zone, you follow the rules and law of Hong Kong. You use Hong Kong arbitration court, you use Hong Kong rule of law, you use Hong Kong accounting standard. Overnight, you convert Pudong area into a mini Hong Kong. And then you can squeeze the American banks and European banks saying that I want you to move your regional headquarters to this place. If you don't, that's fine. Whatever approval you want, KYC. Whatever you want, KID. Until you go on your knees and back to come in. Because my business is so big that everyone wants a piece of my pie. So if this Chinese government comes up and do that, overnight, they can have the rule of law, the accounting standard, the governance of Hong Kong that's been built over the last 50 years, right? So on a stroke of a pen, it can be the financial center of Asia. But that's an admittance by the Chinese government that British law is superior to Chinese law. So that one, their face, I think maybe cannot make it, so it won't happen. But if you think about it, there's one super fast way to change the landscape. Because it's such a big country, there's so many companies, the IPO, the capital markets, it's just in a different league. That's why Japan, if they did it right at the time, if the rules were less onerous, if they can carve out a district, they call it special financial center, lower tax rate, and agree that it's international, therefore it's English here. Today, Tokyo will be the financial center of Asia, not Singapore, not Hong Kong. They're too small, they're irrelevant in the scheme of things. And in fact, a lot of the top traders from Hong Kong and Singapore during my time, they all went to Tokyo to work. So I think the emerging strength of China is something that you have to recognize. And also for Singaporeans who speak Mandarin, it's a big advantage because you're fluent, you're bilingual, and that's a tremendous advantage that you have. But because, like I said, your face can't take it, it won't happen. But you'll be a very important domestic financial center because just by the sheer size of the economy and the opportunities that's ahead. I think we definitely have started the journey, and it's not a situation whereby we have arrived and then there's nothing else to do. I think it's always in a continuous process. And if the market recognizes that, the being is in the becoming. And I think Singapore have good governance. Singapore have started on that, and as we continue doing it, our reputation will speak for itself. So I think we're on the right track. Because MBS is quite serious about things like this, and the companies and the banks are quite responsible. So I think we're on the right track. Have we arrived? We will never arrive because we should always be trying to improve ourselves. Thank you, very, very good question. Let me try my best to answer your question because this is a very good, very tough question. Until today, the Singaporean men and women, to me, is better trained, better educated, and better able to meet the company's need. And that's why you are paid higher than your peers in the region. And rightly so, because you're a lot more productive. You're right, with the advent of AI, a lot of things is being leveled. So it's going to be harder for you. So either other countries will catch up, or we have to go down and meet somewhere in the middle. If we want to stay ahead, then the question is, what are we doing that's different from them? What are we doing that the value add is so much more? I don't know the answer to that, but the answer to that is that whatever you're doing, the creation of the value must be there. Now, in wealth management, the advantage is that if you're a billionaire in Indonesia, you don't want to keep your billion in Jakarta because you don't trust the government. If you're a billionaire in Malaysia, you want to keep $500 million in Singapore. If you're a billionaire in Cambodia, Vietnam, Thai, you want it in Singapore. You know, so because of what the government has done and our rule of law and our good governance, and you know, we have proven that the other countries will now be able to catch up with that. So in this, that's why I said that you are, those of you who are in wealth management or want to be in wealth management, you're in wealth management at the best time in history. You know, given our reputation, you know, and also the flow of capital is coming to this part of the world. You know, when I took over DBS, our net new money, you know, from 5 billion went to 10 billion, then went to 20 billion. This year they are on track to go to record, to a new record, right? Yes. You know, so this industry has an advantage because you can have a very smart private banker in Kuala Lumpur. If he wants to do very well, he will have to come to Singapore. You know, because, you know, like DBS, or we will not open a private bank in Indonesia or China because no point. Because they might give you a little bit there, but a lot of them wants to keep the money in like a Switzerland of Asia, and that's us, so we have advantage. But the generic question on how AI will help level fields in many of the other industries. So we better be careful. If not, we'll price ourselves out, or if not, people will start moving, especially the multinational, will start moving the other jobs to Bangkok or to Kuala Lumpur. And I think that's already happening. You know, like a lot of this marketing job or branding job, or you know, the guy can be in KL and with the efficiency of 5G, you know, and the instant kind of call, we will lose out. So I used to tell my DBS staff, when you're in Kuala Lumpur working for multinational, you come to office, you meet your boss, you talk to them, you be friends with them, you interact with them. It's your advantage. But instead, you don't want to come to office, you want to do a video call from home. A video call from Bukit Timah, from Kuala Lumpur, from Jakarta, from Indonesia, it's the same. And then your boss will say, huh? The guy in Indonesia is only 1/10 the price of Singapore, and they are both all on video call, the 5G there is equally good. Guess who's going to lose the job? You know, I describe it. If I have a gun in the middle of the night and we go on the fight, what is my advantage? My advantage holding a gun is that there's a distance between you and me. I can shoot you before you reach me. But instead of doing that, I go and stand right next to you. By the time I pull my gun, you pull a sword, you can slice me before I can cock the trigger. So we have an advantage where our bosses are here with us and we can interact with them. We choose to give away that advantage. So I think, say to Singaporeans, you're not thinking. You're not thinking. You know, so, I want to work from home. And to me, look, I'm not against working from home. Working from home for young parents with kids or with aging parents that you need to take care of, by all means work from home. But if you're single and you're married without any kids, what is the necessity work from home? And JP Morgan has asked everybody to go back to office because the productivity has gone down. So the cost has gone up. So sometimes we all, because, you know, we abuse the good impact. So, and because like the world is flattening, like Thomas Whitman said, the world is now flat. We better be careful. If we don't have the extra value, we will lose our job, or the job will go to somewhere else. So make sure whatever you do, your productivity and the value add must be there to justify it. You know, I always said the highest paid guy is not the most expensive. You know, because he brings so much value to the company. In fact, I think Piyush Gupta is the poorest paid guy in the company. Given the value he brings and what we pay him, right? I'm the second poorest paid guy. Sorry. Thank you. Oh, I am very bullish India. India under Modi has really done a good job, and India also is going to be the third largest economy in the world. You know, after China, US, and India is coming up. So I think if India can get their act right now, India is going to do very well. Now, Singapore, India has always had a good relationship, you know, but Dubai is giving us a run for our money. We used to joke, the Indians used to joke that Singapore is the best Indian city outside India. We have completely lost that. Dubai is the best Indian city outside India. So Singapore needs to reinvent themselves, and how do they capture that flow? You know, Dubai welcome them with open arm, no tax, 10-year golden visa, you know. So India as a country, I think the wind is behind your back, the runway is very long. You know, so I'm very bullish India. Industry is coming up, you are enjoying the dividend of an educated young society. You know, Singapore relationship to it, I think is good, but India is giving us a run for our money. What can we do to offset it? That one PM Wong better, this one slightly more his pay grade than my pay grade. There are two parts to doing well, what I would do. The first part is really, the first part is really the values that you have been brought up with. You know, I think that one is called. In any industry, to do well, the technical knowledge must be there. People think it's easy to be a private banker, you know, go for expensive lunch and dinner, and a nice restaurant and give you zillions and zillions of dollars. It's not that simple. You know, how do you add value? If you are so good, when you don't call the customer call you. Because the customer know that you bring value. So like I said, when I tell my private bankers, it's not just, you know, doing your KYC. It's understanding your customers. You know, one time, a customer asked me, Sim, should I pick Citibank or UBS or DBS as my private banker? How do you want them? So my answer was very simple. I said at that level, DBS or UBS or Citibank or Credit Suisse, they're all very good. Okay, they have the platform for you to do what you want to do. But the person representing the bank, the individual, when you talk to them, what's the chemistry with them? Do they ask you or tell you, oh, Mr. So-and-so, I can make money for you, I have this product, I have a product, I have this product, Or do they ask you, you know, Mr. So-and-so, how did you make money, what's important to you, you know, get to know you and understand the history of your family and how you accumulated that wealth. And you know this guy don't just think short term to make money because he wants to catch his fee. That he really thinks of it more as a relationship. Then I said that's a guy or that's the bank that you go with because they're all good banks. You know, it's a personal, you know, of the chemistry. So then, like, to answer your question, you need technical knowledge. And you also need, now, especially in wealth management, you need to understand advisory. You know, like, if you are handling a customer like me, who is a salary person, own a bonus and a salary, okay, you help me understand geopolitics, where to invest, what's the rationale behind it. Then if you meet somebody else who's a businessman, maybe not like a single billionaire, SME, medium enterprise, you know, then you could advise them, is there a company you should buy? Should you delist in Singapore and list in Hong Kong because they give you a higher multiple? Or can I, you know, raise private debt to help you grow instead of going IPO? That kind of conversation, in a way, is advisory like an investment banker. So the best, really top-end private bankers come advisory bankers at the same time. Then they know within their 50 customers that they serve, maybe 30 of them are, you know, people like you and me who earn salary. The other 20 were businessmen. The engagement is different. Then you have to use the digital avatar to handle the 30 that don't require that kind of bespoke solution. Then this technology can make you more productive because you can handle more customers, but only really spend your time on those that are in the billionaire category. People like me can use an avatar to serve me. I think to do well in anything, you need to have a good network. I mean, a good network definitely helps. Are you Hokkien?
No, I believe I'm Teochew.
You know, in Hokkien they say, keep close now. I help Joe. You know what I mean, right? I help Joe. You know how to be a person. You know, so a good network is always good. You know, and even if you're in support function, you know, they can help you, they can guide you. You know, but in front line, you've got to enjoy the sales part, you've got to believe what you're selling. You know, if you don't, it will come across. If you're enthusiastic about what you're selling, you know, people can respect it. You know, I mentioned earlier, I love cars. I said if I were to be a salesman, a car salesman, I think I'll sell cars very well. Because I'm enthusiastic about it. I know my model, I know the torque, I know the horsepower, I know the 0 to 100. You know, when a salesman sells you with that kind of enthusiasm, you also buy from the guy. Right? Sometimes you ask, just give you a standard answer. It's like a job, it's not a passion. So whatever you do, the find the value must be there. And the way you can have that is that you can understand how you're adding value and why you enjoy it. Okay? So good luck in your next 40 years.
Thank you.
It's, I think ESG definitely something very important. And Singapore has actually taken the lead, to do this. And I think hats off again to the regulators. And we are also careful that we do this properly and not just to tick the box. So again, by doing simple things correct and consistently, we will build a reputation for it. So I think we're on the right track. It has to be do well to do good. It cannot be just do good. If you don't do well, you can't do good. So that has to be the same. You'll be surprised, but there are a lot of Chinese money that comes to Singapore. And the reason is that Hong Kong is part of China, so they are also a little bit worried. So during the Hong Kong, the yellow umbrella period, we saw a lot of honkies, the rich one, opening an account in Singapore. And what they do is they fund with very little money, 100,000. Okay, but they want the account set up so that at the switch they can move the money very fast. So they want all the KYC being done. Now things are such that money has gone back to Hong Kong. Can we work together? Of course we can work together, but Hong Kong will be very protective of their own turf also. So I don't know, for to work together, either within the bank like DBS, Singapore DBS, Hong Kong, and can collaborate to make sure that we share best practices. That's one way to work together. Would, let's say, DBS work together with UBS? Probably not. Would the Hong Kong government work with the Singapore government? Possible, but there has to be a government-driven framework. But for the banks, I'm sure all the top private banks who have branches in Hong Kong and Singapore are really collaborating in that manner. Now, most private banks only book either in Hong Kong or Singapore. They will never book in Kuala Lumpur or Jakarta or Bangkok. So in that respect, I think there's some form, I don't have the data, but I think within the same banking entity, they are really doing that.